Are we ready to get started? Okay, you can begin.
This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Brummel?
Here.
Alderman Anderson?
Here.
Alderman Ashar?
Here.
Alderman Berry?
Here.
Alderman Davalos?
I just had a text message from her. She's having problems with her computer again. She said she's going to try to get it on through her phone.
Okay, I'll call her again at the end. Chairman Goodman?
Here.
Alderman Crucial is absent. Alderman Widener?
Here.
Alderman Wilson?
Here.
Staff? City Administrator Coakley?
Here.
Assistant City Administrator White?
Here.
Finance Director Dahlstrom?
Here.
Police Chief Toronto?
Here.
Treasurer Behrens? Administrative Services Coordinator Morgan?
Here.
Senior Accountant and Staff Liaison Beltran?
Here.
And Deputy City Clerk, myself, Dawn Gravetti, I'm here. Is there anyone else I missed? How about Alderman Davalos?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, you have a quorum.
Okay, we do, and hopefully Alderman Davalos will be joining us. But let's go ahead to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please say it silently along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now is the time that we, please note this meeting is being recorded, and we will begin with public comments, beginning with anyone who's present at City Hall and wishes to make a comment in person. Is anyone there, Administrator Cooper?
There's no one here to make a comment tonight, Mayor. Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you. Now we'll hear any verbal comments from the public who are participating by phone. If you'd like to speak, please announce yourself now. Don't see anyone on the line, however. All right, have we received any emailed comments?
No.
Okay. I want everyone to note that once we conclude citizens' comments, there's not going to be another opportunity for the public to comment at this meeting. But we will move on to officials and staff comments, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just would wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I have nothing else this evening.
Thank you. We do have a caller on the line. Is that you, Alderman Davalos?
This is Colin.
Oh, hello, Colin. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to officials and staff comments next. Deputy Clerk.
I have no comments at this time, thank you.
Thank you. The treasurer is absent, so we'll go to the alderman. Alderman Anderson.
Just a happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you. Alderman Ashar.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. No comments other than that.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
No comments other than happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you. Same thing from me. Best wishes for a wonderful Thanksgiving. I I hope everybody has a safe and festive holiday. Alderman Widener is next.
Happy Thanksgiving, one and all.
Thank you. And Alderman Wilson.
It's the same amen to me. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Be safe.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go right ahead with the business of the meeting. The first item on our agenda today is the consideration of the Warrenville Friends of the Fourth funding request. And I will go first to Deputy Clerk Corvetti.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Since fiscal year 2019, the city has budgeted $30,000 in expenses for the July 3rd and 4th Independence Day celebration. Prior to that, the city budgeted $24,000 in expenses for the event. Actual expenses for the event in fiscal year 19 were approximately $56,000, which included the city's contribution. Warrenville Friends of the Fourth Committee is now requesting an additional $10,000 in funding for next year's event. Included with the backup material is the committee's written request, as well as a report of hotel tax fund projections for the next few years prepared by Finance Director Dahlstrand. Committee Director Colin Wilkie is here to answer any questions you might have about the request, and Finance Director Dahlstrand can offer any additional information on the projections.
Thank you. Let's go to Colin for comments.
Yes. Trying to do two things here. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Go right ahead. We can see you and we're hearing you already. Okay, we're not hearing you now. It looks like you're muted.
There we go. The Warrenville Friends of the Fourth Committee has always operated on a budget that is within our means. Unfortunately, with prices going up and the inability to raise funds last year or the year prior, we have actually eaten into our nest egg, if you will. We're down to below $12,000 in that. We normally operate very close to break even or even lose money on the celebration. Therefore, this year we were hoping for 2022 that we could possibly ask the City Council for an additional $10,000. We're moving towards possibly going ahead and having a GoFundMe page and also some other ideas for raising funds during the parade. But fireworks right now are in the range of $22,000 to $28,000 due to the problem that the trees have gotten higher and we've got to get bigger shells. And so when we're firing off from Bauer, that particular area is probably going to be unusable for us in the near future, probably in about 1 or 2 years, because of the fallout from these higher shells. But in the meantime, we want to give the community as much as we can, as we always have, do the best that we can.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Let's go to the Alderman for comments and questions. We'll start with Alderman Anderson.
I don't have a question on this one.
Thank you, Alderman Ashour.
No questions, and thanks for all your efforts.
Alderman Berry.
Yes, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we now have Alderman Davalos. Is that you, Kathy? Any comments or questions, Kathy? I see her on the screen, but she is muted. Okay, Kathy, if you can hear me, we can't hear you. I will go on for now. Alderman Widener.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkie, thank you for all your volunteer efforts and your leadership over the years.
the success of the Warrenville 4th of July is due in great part to your commitment to the event. And I support this, and I also applaud you for taking steps to raise funds, because I think it's always great that volunteer groups try to support their event themselves, along with the additional money that the city provides, and also always appreciate the reports that are put out after the event, citing the expenses and the attendance and some of the highlights of the event. My only comment regarding this is, after this year's 4th of July, on social media, you see a lot of comments about the loud aerial bombs and explosions and how they affect veterans with PTSD as well as others. And also, you hear about household pets that are oftentimes disturbed more by the noise than the colors of the displays. And then also, being that it's nesting season, the people that are involved in conservation practices are often very concerned over the explosions, scaring birds out of their roosting areas and rookeries and things like that, because 4th of July is, at a time when nature is raising its young and fledging its feathered friends. So I don't know if, when you develop the contract, you can take some of these things into consideration, but I know one of the comments that I saw was that I think in Italy they have silent, or they lean toward more silent fireworks and rely on the colors and the details in the sky that, seem to mesmerize and make people happy. So that's my only thought, and thanks for listening, and thanks again for all your work.
Thank you, and that's a great idea. We can look into it.
All right, thank you. Alderman Wilson.
No comment. Thank you very much for what you do.
Okay, before we move on, I'd go to Finance Director Dahlstrand just to discuss the condition of the Hotel Motel Fund in terms of responding to this request. I know there's a page in the backup that has projections of expenditures exceeding revenues for the next several years, probably maybe not in 2022 by a small amount. But I think that might actually be a mistake, because it looks like the transfers out to the CMRP in 2022 is set at 300, and I believe we planned to have 1 year at 350 instead. So that change would make it negative. But Kevin, do you have any thoughts on the condition of the Hotel Motel Fund for the next several years in terms of this request, especially if, as seems likely, we get matching requests for summer days?
At this point, we've incorporated their $10,000 additional request out through 2025. And at this point, I don't see that would make a huge impact on this fund. We will also begin to see some of the payback into this fund from the money that was pledged for the Lexington Trace Agreement. So I think as time goes on, the other thing to point out here is that the projections for the tax revenue within that fund remain relatively flat, actually are shown as flat going out into 2023, 24, and 25. That's based on the projections for the year we're currently in. That would still leave us well short of where we were prior to the pandemic. But at this point, there's no way to know for sure where those revenues are headed. So it is my anticipation we will see an increase in those, although I don't know to what degree at this point, as business travel has certainly not returned to where it was before the pandemic hit. So I don't have any objection to their request, and I don't think it would be detrimental to the fund going forward at this point.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. It's important to keep an eye on that. If there are any further questions or comments, please speak up, or if anyone wishes to make a motion, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, this is Alderman Davalos. I'm very sorry. My computer is totally blown up here, so I'm trying to figure this out. But thank you, Colin, for the presentation. My only questions or my only thoughts would be just to get, and maybe I missed it when you did your presentation, would be just to get a little more information on exactly what is the 10,000 just going for the fireworks? Are there other things? And I know you made one suggestion in the packet about lowering expenses. And it would just be nice to have the group together and talk about how, from their experience, how we might be able to lower some expenses, and raise some revenue that would save the city some money is my only thought. Thanks.
Yeah, Alderman Wilson has a question.
Please.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the 7-Eleven, but just on the sheet that we got here indicating the expenditures for the next 3 fiscal years, I noticed that the city projects for 2023, there are $5,000. And for 2024, it's $65,000. Could you give me an explanation as to the difference? What's going on?
Would you like me to answer that, Madam Chairman? I can do that.
Please, I think that's the aesthetic enhancement program, yes?
You are absolutely
Other
correct.
expenditures.
It's the aesthetic enhancement program returning in 2024 at $60,000.
Right. Instead of doing 30,000 a year, we've now done 60,000 every other year, but we've postponed it for 2021.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just noticed that quite a difference there between 5 and 65. I wasn't sure what accounted for it, but thank you for the explanation.
Right.
Chairman, this is Alderman Widener. I'll move to recommend the City Council direct staff to include $10,000 in additional funding for the fiscal year 2023 Independence Day celebration.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alderman Widener, a second by Alderman Ashour. Clerk, can you please read the roll?
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson. Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Colin, for all your hard work. And please thank the committee for us.
I certainly will, and thank you, Alderman, for giving us some money, and hopefully we can start fundraising and this will go away in a year or so.
Good luck with that. We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to item number 2, the consideration of modifications to the hotel grant policy to allow events outside city corporate limits effective beginning fiscal year 2023. And I will go to Senior Accountant Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. Before you should have a copy of a memo and a copy of the modified hotel tax grant policy. This change came about during the Tourism and Arts Commission's grant application that started in September. We had an application that from CoffeeCon that requested the venue be at St. James Farm. The venue currently is outside of city corporate limits. The policy as it is written now does not allow for events to take place in venues outside of city corporate limits. Reviewing this with the commission, they requested the following change be made to procedural guideline D, line number 4, which would basically add the language, events must take place within the city of Warrenville corporate limits or with an address that includes zip code 60555. We did have the city attorney review this change, and the policy with the modified language is on good legal standing. So with that said, any other questions that you may have regarding this change?
Okay, seems very straightforward. Any questions? Alderman Anderson.
Yeah, you answered the question when you said the city attorney had looked at it. I assume we have a policy like this because we want to encourage the activity to occur within proximity of us. And I guess we're trusting this, while it may not be Warrenville, it feels like us and it's consistent with the theme of the committee. So if the committee's good with it, I'm good with it.
Yes, it's unincorporated, Warren. Alderman Ashour.
Questions?
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
I'm in agreement with this because I'm on the tech commission. We looked at this from several different ways, and this was the easiest way of doing it by just adding the zip code. We did run this all by, as Leo said, by the attorney. She was fine with this. And this allows CoffeeCon to be able to get out of its the structure over at the IBEW building. They were paying $25,000 just to rent that building, and they're going to be paying a lot less money to St. James Farm. It's going to be outside. It's going to be a great event. They're going to add a whole bunch of different features that they could not do if they were at the IBEW building. So this looked like a just kind of a win-win for the people who would be going to the event, for the vendors, and for CoffeeCon themselves. They've done a lot to bring this event to Warrenville and keep it in Warrenville. So we're really happy with the way this is working out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Alderman Davalos.
I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have none. Alderman Widener.
Yes, will this attract other events potentially, or is this just being done for the CoffeeCon event?
Well, the idea is to make the change, so if there's any additional venues within the zip code 60555, which is Warrenville still, but not in city corporate limits, it would open up other venues as they develop, also promote possibly other events to take place in St. James Farms, now that that's an option.
Okay, I hope we find a way to reach out to groups that might be in the close proximity to the city to be able to encourage them to apply for TAC grants. And I just, as a follow-up, did we get a final report from CoffeeCon on the expenditure of funds and the successes of the event?
I believe so. I believe that was included in the minutes in the past, but I can make sure that you get a copy.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it, but
Okay.
I may have missed it. But I think as we expend these significant funds on from the hotel and motel tax group, I think the council should have
And you're referring to
follow up.
And you're referring to fiscal year 20, 21, or 22? Because this year they're not having one.
Yeah, the most recent ones that they've had, and for that matter, I guess any other group that's utilizing hotel and motel tax funds, it would be good to get a finishing report. And I think we used to do that, and I just don't remember in recent years or months receiving final reports on the hotel and motel tax expenditure monies. That's all I had.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Wagner. I believe those reports are filed with TAC, and then we review the TAC minutes, but not all of the detailed reports, but I'm sure TAC could make those available to the aldermen if there's interest. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong.
This is Alderman Berry. A final report has to be given to TAC and to the finance director in order for their final payments to be made. So it's kind of important that they do file those. So we always see something, and it has to be filed within 45 days of the completion of their event. So if they come in at different times, therefore they do come in at different times because of that stipulation. So we can go back if you would like to see reports from CoffeeCon. We can actually go back and find those and get them to you, Alderman Widener.
Excuse me, it's not just CoffeeCon, it's just, looking at all the events and looking at the attendance figures to see whether they're rising or falling, what the weather was that day, and what some of the highlights were of the event, and, understand the potential for improvements and entertain maybe earlier the possibilities for increased expenditures being approved by the council. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Alderman Wilson then. Thank you.
Well, my only question is if, the whole idea was to have things within the city of Warrenville that we're spending our money to have benefits to organizations and businesses that live within Warrenville. This stretches it out now because I don't know how much money they're spending now to rent that facility out there as opposed to in the village. So are we going to open up a door now that they can go outside to somewhere else? Are we hurting our own industry here and our businesses within Warrenville? Is the next step someplace like Cantera? I mean, not Cantera, but I just want a question about that. Are we stretching ourselves to allow things that don't help Warrenville?
Well, the idea of having the zip code 60555, it still would have a Warrenville address, and the closest hotels would still be the ones in Warrenville. Allowing the venue to take place in St. James Farm would still benefit the city itself because people would visit. We either have to stay at the city, the hotels here, or go and eat at the restaurants here. So just because it's just outside of city corporate limits, there's still a derived benefit from having it at the St. James Farm venue.
Okay, Leo, thank you very much. That you answered my question very suspiciously.
No, yeah, we asked the city attorney about that.
Good.
Because that was part of her legal review, so that came up.
Oh, good. Well, thank you very much, Leo. I really appreciate that explanation, and I agree with the whole process and say, yes, let's do it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, if anyone else has any further comments or questions, please jump in, and I would also entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Mary. I'd like to, let's see, where is the motion? I'd like to make a motion to, number one, accept Tourism and Arts Commission recommendation and amend the hotel grant policy.
Second, Alderman Anderson.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alderman Berry, second by Alderman Anderson. So can I please have the roll call?
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 3, the consideration of the Warren Tavern Funding Assistance Procedure, effective beginning fiscal year 2024. And again, Senior Accountant Beltran.
Thank you. During this grant application process, starting September, the Tourism and Arts Commission looked at the tavern funding assistance procedure to see if they could be a better service to the city and the city council by providing a recommendation about tavern assistance funding. They have reviewed tavern requests in the past when they were part of the hotel tax grant program. So in order to be a better service to the city, they are requesting the modifications to the funding assistance procedure to have the Tourism and Arts Commission provide a recommendation that would line up with the hotel tax grant process and calendar year.
Okay, so this involves changing the deadline a little bit from
Yeah.
January to September.
Yeah, and it would be fiscal year 24. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be for fiscal year 23 because the calendar timeline doesn't work out, so.
Understood. All right, any questions or comments? Alderman Anderson.
So I was interpreting this as the goal was to move this away from city council having to approve these and move it to TAC. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, the city council would still approve these. What the Tourism and Arts Commission would do is review the application from the tavern and provide a recommendation of whether or not to approve all or certain expenses for their request. This would be outside the hotel tax grant policy because currently they have the authority to review these anymore because it was pulled out separately. But in order to be a better service, they wanted to provide a recommendation on whether or not to approve the funding request from the tavern.
So rather than us hearing directly from the tavern, we'll hear from the TAC.
Yeah, they would provide a recommendation to either approve or not approve the request from the tavern. The tavern would probably still be there to take questions if there was specific questions that you wanted them to answer. So.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
I think that another set of eyes is always good, so I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Yes, that's one of the reasons that TAC decided that they wanted to kind of assist the city council instead of the city council trying to go through all the motions that TAC usually goes through to approve or recommend a grant, because the last time we did this and allowed the city council to do the approval, it was very complicated for everyone on the city council to start looking at this. And we just thought that since we are good at doing it, good at looking at these applications, good at making these recommendations, that we might as well just continue doing that, but then letting the city council have the final say so.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
I don't have any comments, but I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I too would just say that I'm in favor of this recommendation. It seems like a good idea to me. Alderman Weidner.
I have no comments. Thank you.
And Alderman Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had some micro. Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think this should be separated from the tax grant. They should be able to come to us and handle it totally outside of the grant program. Thank you.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Berry. I'd like to make a motion to accept the Tourism and Arts Commission recommendation and amend the Warren Tavern funding assistance procedure.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
We have a motion by Alderman Berry, a second by Alderman Ashour. Clerk, can I have the roll?
Alderman Anderson,
Oh. Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will move on to item number 4, which is an informational update on the calendar year 2021 property tax levy from Finance Director Dahlstrand.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is informational only. The first reading of the 2021 property tax levy will take place at the December 6th City Council meeting. The public hearing, second reading and consideration would occur at the December 20th meeting. The information I have that I'm able to share right now is that within the Winfield Township portion of the city, there's approximately $11.8 million in new construction value, and that the EAV increase within Winfield Township is projected to be 3.13%. I'm waiting for similar information from the Naperville Township side of the community, and we'll work those in once they are obtained. There's no action required on this item, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please speak up. We do not need to take any action. Okay, I will move on to item number 5 then, which is the consideration of the fiscal year 2023 elected officials budget consideration requests. Again, Finance Director Dahlstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to provide a very brief update, there were no 2023 elected official budget consideration forms received, and at this point, there is no action required. This is informational only.
Thank you. Nothing to act on there, so we'll just move directly to item number 6, the consideration of the city liability insurance renewal for calendar year 2022, and we'll go to the Administrative Services Coordinator, Alma Morgan.
Good evening, and thank you. This evening, I present to you the city's 2022 annual insurance renewal for all currently held city insurance coverages. The renewal rate is $452,017, which is an overall 0.96% increase from the 2021 rate of $447,709. I would like to note that prior to receiving the renewal quote from Gallagher, staff had anticipated a 20% increase in workers' compensation premiums and a 6% increase in liability insurance premiums due to market trend information. So when we received the 0.96% increase, it was very well received. Our workers' compensation carrier has reserved $23,371 in grant monies for the city to use once again for safety-related equipment, training, and programming. And this grant is significantly more than last year's grant and is due to having a claims loss ratio below 20%. And we strongly believe that this is due in large part to the Safety Committee's ongoing efforts to mitigate risks through increased training, policy updates that we've been doing over the last couple of years, and timely accident reviews. So included with your agenda backup material is a letter from Ethan Selsinger, the city's consultant with Gallagher, further explaining the renewal quotes, loss trends, and their most recent market report, which is the spring summer report. And I am happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Alderman Anderson.
I have no questions on this one.
Thank you, Alderman Ashour.
No questions. Seems to be good news.
Thank you, Alderman Berry.
I agree. This is very good news considering insurance usually goes up quite a bit. But thanks to everyone for keeping all that lost ratio down and the workman's compensation down. And you know, it's, having those safety programs really does help quite a bit, I think. So good job.
Thank you, Alderman Zabalos.
I agree with the other alderman, and I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I noted that the difference in the grant is significantly more than the difference in the increase. So from a certain point of view, the price is actually going down a little bit, which is really great and rare.
Surprisingly pleasant.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that was my only remark. Alderman Wyker.
I'm in agreement, and thank you for the report.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
Good report. Thank you very much. Let's go for it.
Fantastic. I would entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Berry. I'd like to recommend the City Council accept a renewal quote from Gallagher for city insurance coverage for calendar year 2022 in the amount of $452,017.
Second, Alderman Wilson.
All right, I heard a motion by Alderman Berry and a second by Alderman Wilson. Clerk, can you please have the roll call?
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashaw,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, consideration to amend the fiscal year 2022 authorized strength ordinance to reflect one position title change from records assistant to records supervisor. And we will go to Chief Toronto to discuss this.
Thank you, Chairman. Since May of 2020, the police department reduced the records division by one position, going from 4 to 3. However, since that time, the daily operations have become more complex because of programs that have been initiated by the police department, such as the body-worn camera program and also the DUGIS records management system and communication system that we utilize, and also some of the issues that have come because of mandates by legislative action, such as the expungement of certain criminal records that had to do for juvenile offenses and minor drug offenses, namely cannabis. So after reviewing the operations, we recommended to designate one of the 3 existing records assistants as a record supervisor. And the reason for this is, as we all know, there has to be a stop point at some point where somebody is responsible for the actions of what goes on there. The Deputy Chief of Investigations and Administration has got quite a bit on his plate, and quite frankly, most career police officers don't have a tremendous amount of knowledge, especially now because of the complexity and specificity of these different records management systems and specific mandates required by law, that we would be able to have the ability to have this information right at our fingertips. So we looked at designating one of the records assistants as a records supervisor. Now, if you look in your backup material, there's a job description which has all the list of responsibilities that this person would be responsible for, as well as a job factor analysis that was put together. With the assistance of the Assistant City Administrator, there was a pay comparison done, I believe, with our comparables to establish a pay range, and we looked at the budgetary impact as $11,806. But again, I just want to emphasize that this is solely a redesignation of one of the 3 existing personnel and not adding an additional person. So the number of staff does not increase, so you don't have an entire salary along with an employee benefits. And I'd be happy, if I can, to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We'll go to Alderman Anderson first.
I have no question. I actually think it's a great approach and makes a lot of sense. And I thought it was very thoughtfully prepared. Much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Asha.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Barry.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
I don't have any questions either. Thank you.
Thank you. The one thing I remember you saying, Chief, was that when you compared us to the surrounding communities, other cities, police departments did have this position already?
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me that you brought that up. We did do a survey of some of our comparables as well as surrounding jurisdictions, and I believe out of 16 communities, there was only one that did not have a record supervisor position.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very relevant when we make this decision. That seems like important information to have when other people are doing it in a similar situation and we see the need in our own situation, and even at a greater expense, it seems definitely worthwhile. Thank you. Alderman Weiger.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I just think this is a good procedure. We need to put in the structures about seniority and responsibility. And I think this is another good move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there are any further comments or questions, I would entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Barry. I would like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass an ordinance amending the current authorized personnel strength ordinance to reflect 1 record supervisor and 2 records assistants.
Second, Alderman Wilson.
All right, I heard a motion by Alderman Barry, second by Alderman Wilson. Can we please have a roll call, clerk?
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Weidner,
Aye.
Alderman Ashaw,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Barry.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Chief, we will move on to item number 8, the consideration of an in-car camera vendor contract. Again, Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. Currently, we're looking to transition from the current Panasonic in-car camera systems to an Axon Fleet 3 in-car camera system over the course of approximately 7 years for our 10 marked police cars that we have in our fleet. The phase out is based on our experience with the current in-car system in that it doesn't interface well with the current DUGIS and net RMS system that we are using. We seem to be experiencing continual problems that we have to use our vendor for that has to come out and take a look at the camera and do what they can to try and get it to integrate because, again, so much of this is like a chain link type of system. One doesn't work well without the other. Currently, too, the average life expectancy of the camera is about 3.5 years, while our average life expectancy of a squad car is 3 to 4 years. So what we're doing with the Panasonic cameras is that we actually have to purchase those cameras. And those cameras cost us right now $8,650. And they won't upgrade to any new technology that may happen, say, a year from now after you purchase that camera. The reason that there's such a short life expectancy of these cameras is due to the climate conditions that we have in this part of the country, where you go from extremely hot temperature to extremely cold temperature. And you have to remember, these are permanently mounted in a car, and they're out there in the elements, well, inside the car, which is out there in the elements 24 hours a day. So what we did is go to some demonstrations with Axon, who supplies our body-worn cameras, and they also have in-car cameras. And some of the interesting things that we learned is, unlike Panasonic, with Panasonic, we have to include the server space in order to maintain any of the camera footage that we utilize, and we have to burn disks for this if we're going to send it either for a FOIA request or to the state's attorney's office or what have you. The Axon system is all cloud-based. It has unlimited storage. We can use this with our DUGIS system to electronically transmit this to any of the DuPage County agencies and also to the state's attorney's office, the coroner's office, the probation department, or what have you. So it's more seamless with that. It integrates with our body cameras in that you would be able to have the officer with the body camera walk up on a traffic stop, and you would essentially be able to have a split screen. So you would be able to see the view from the officer's body camera, and on the other half of the screen, you would be able to see the view from the squad car of what they're transmitting. The warranty on this is on all parts, and it would include expediting camera repairs and replacement during our contract period. This would also upgrade to any new technology that would come out during the period of the lease. They would provide new technology and functionality with an automatic license plate recognition and respond technology, which is not currently available through Panasonic. Automatic license plate recognition, and I'll be doing something during the budget process that I want to present it to the council, but it's a great tool that you're seeing being utilized by more and more police departments in that they use this almost what you would call geofencing in a community where you're able to recognize descriptions of cars and license plates. This would be available on that when and if we went to signing on with a service that provided us with ALPR technology. Respond allows for live streaming of in-car camera access to an officer location, which means that any of the administrators or any of the other officers that are out on the street would be able to get live stream camera footage from the officer that would activate this respond feature on their cameras. It would reduce staff time and troubleshooting for our city IT contracted vendors. We have a 5-year contract with Axon body-worn cameras. We're looking to use the same for the Fleet 3 system. These costs are spread out over a 5-year contract period, like our body-worn cameras, and we would be able to sync the body-worn cameras and the Fleet 3 cameras for playback, multiple angle incident review. What we're asking right now is to replace 3 of these cameras. We have in the budget the ability to replace 3 cars this year. When we would get the new cars, we're looking at replacing those cameras. We're looking at a total of about 7 years to replace all of the cameras in our current 10-car fleet. And we're looking at a cost for the 5-car camera per camera, which would be $12,480. This would be spread out over a 5-year contract period. There's a memo included in the backup material, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer those for you.
Thank you. For questions, we'll start with Alderman Anderson.
Yeah, just a couple. I don't know, Kevin, if maybe you're the right person to answer. What's the total net cost increase to budget to doing this?
I do not know the answer offhand, but we will make sure we do provide that to you.
And Chief, I don't know if we're required or would we consider, so something of this magnitude, are we required to do kind of a competitive bidding process where we look at multiple vendors? I mean, I guess we have the one that's in, and I understand there's always an elegance if you can go with a common vendor across similar platforms, so I understand that, but is there anything in our purchasing requirements that would tell us that we need to look at it, at least one other vendor in the process?
information that I got from our city attorney, just like the body worn cameras, what we're doing now is we're utilizing a service. We're not actually purchasing a piece of hardware. So we would not be required to use a competitive bidding process.
Okay. Do we know in the market, is this a market leader? Should we be looking at anybody else?
Right now, what we looked at is these are being used by the vast, vast majority. I think there's 4 departments in DuPage County that don't use Axon. The Chicago Police Department uses Axon. In Naperville, again, very, very large departments. They are probably, because of their technology and the compatibility with the body-worn cameras, I would say, an industry leader right now.
Okay, that's good information to know. That's all I have.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. We'll go to Alderman Asher.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Berry.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Davalos.
I have no questions, but I think this is an extremely efficient plan going forward as we move into the future. It seems like we're getting everything to be compatible, and I think it's a great idea. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a few questions too, some along the lines of what Alderman Anderson asked. When we replace a $8,650 camera with a $12,480 camera, and you talk about cost savings, I think you need to go into a little bit more detail when you talk about the per year cost and what our actual experience has been in the past with the lifetime of these cameras.
Okay, what I'm looking at here in the bid, which I had in the backup that was provided by Deputy Chief Jacobson, if you're looking at this particular issue, you're looking at from September of 2021 to September of 2025, which would be the contract period, you're looking at $49.92 in total cost. That would be for 2 cameras. So you're looking at about $2,500 a year, and I'll get all this broken down for you specifically, so that's no problem. But you're looking at approximately $2,500 per year per camera for the lease, versus the $8,000 that you would be looking at with the Panasonic camera.
And the Panasonic cameras have lasted for 3.5-ish years, so dividing 8,000 by 3.5 or 4, that's a very comparable price. It's 2,000 something.
Yeah, you're looking at something like that. But again, Panasonic doesn't do any upgrades, and we also have to, and I have no idea what the cost would be, but you have to factor in the cost of the server that we have to supply in order to store this.
So that was exactly where I was going to go with my next question. Will we actually need to buy a smaller server, or will we actually save any money on servers?
Yeah, because this is all unlimited cloud-based storage. Does not cost us anything. It's all part of the contract package.
Right, but we have servers, and we use them for some other things. So I guess my question is just, is there a difference in price between the server we will need? What sort of money are we talking about? Servers are quite expensive. Maybe the finance director could weigh in.
Actually, I would ask the assistant city administrator to help with that. She works more with the servers than I do personally.
Alderman Goodman, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question, please.
How much would we save, or would we save anything? Can we buy a cheaper server, or will we not have to upgrade as frequently? Just wondering what sort of order of magnitude, just the general scale of savings that we could expect from this.
That's, it's a little bit difficult of a question to answer only because there's not a server dedicated specifically to the video storage for police squad cars. In general, videos and photos tend to use up the largest quantity of storage space because of the size of the files. So in theory, there would be a long-term savings by not having the amount of video and photo stored on site because it would now be stored on the cloud in theory, but you are paying a subscription or licensing cost for that service to store the information on the cloud. There's not at this point an easy way really to calculate a savings between those two different things because you are paying an ongoing service to store the items on the cloud. And there isn't a dedicated server just for the video. So we wouldn't necessarily be able to decommission a server just because of this purpose. So it's likely we would continue to have the servers that we have in place now. The savings might be in we don't have to buy up additional storage space to accommodate the additional video storage on our premises, if that makes sense. No, that's not really an answer to your question specifically, but it's a little bit difficult to answer because it's not a one-for-one comparison.
But I think it does answer my question that at least for the short term, this doesn't save us any money at all on servers. We continue to have the same number that we've already purchased, and perhaps at some future time, our new server would not have to be as large, maybe, or something like that. So there's some sort of rather speculative saving, but there's not actually any money that we're saving on servers or storage space.
Correct. That would be a correct assessment. And in general, I would say that in terms of IT across the city, the cost of doing business is changing to getting away from on-premise storage and on-premise applications, local stored applications, and moving towards cloud-based solutions that offer for one thing, additional security in how you access the information, but also provide more end user capacity because you can access that data from anywhere, generally as long as you have an internet connection and the login credentials to access the information. It eliminates the possibility of files being lost if there's damage to our server, damage to our computers or portals or local hardware. You have those options and benefits because it is cloud sourced and it's backed up regularly off-site. So there are some benefits to it, but the industry in general is moving away from on-premise storage solutions. We're seeing that a lot with all of our applications and different licensing structures.
Right. So if we make this change and make other similar sorts of storage changes in the future, it's possible it will decrease our total storage costs someday, but at the moment, no. I guess my only other question would have to do with these other subscriptions. If we have camera systems that offer functionality like the ALPR system and the Respond application, I believe the chief mentioned he'd be coming back to us about this in the budget, so I'm sure we'll get more information in the future. But I guess I'm just wondering, if we have more expensive software and we want to use it to do more things, then is the presumption here that these are going to be some significant new additional costs?
I can tell you this, and this will be what I present when we do the budget, Chairman, that if in the event we would go to a license plate recognition camera system, the company, which by the way uses Axon technology, would provide us with interfacing all of the current devices that had automatic license plate recognition capabilities at no extra cost.
Oh, at no extra cost. That's very appealing. I like when you tell me those things. Thank you, Keith. All right, that's the last of my questions, and we'll move on to Alderman Wagner.
I think all the questions that I might have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I guess my only question in this whole thing is these things are changing so quickly in the techniques and the technology that we have here and the ability to do things that we're looking at a 5-year agreement. And I appreciate that somewhere along the line, you have to make a decision, you go for it or you don't. But, and we just committed to a lot of other things for the body cameras, et cetera, and new. I don't know whether this is the right time for us to commit to another 5-year commitment to do this. So I have questions about it. I'm not sure how I'm going to answer the question when the vote comes up.
What I can tell you, Alderman, is just like our body worn cameras, if they come out with a version 2.0, and then we're in the second year of the contract, we get that upgrade at no additional cost. During the course of the contract, any upgrade in technology or equipment, they come out with a different type of lens technology, or what have you, that would be provided and upgraded for us at no additional cost during the life of the contract.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I appreciate that assurance, or at least an indication of an assurance that it's not going to continue to cost us more and more money every time the technology changes during this period of time. That being the case, I agree and I approve of it. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments from anyone? Or if anyone is ready to make a motion?
Can I just ask one more quick question? I don't know if I'm missing part of this meeting for technology reasons. I think I need an upgrade. Chief, this, what's it called? This respond factor, I'm looking at the safety things like the license plate recognition, which I think is great. And this respond, so if you had an officer that, or maybe 2 officers that could not respond for whatever reason, we could find out where they were a little bit better with this respond capability. Is that true, or is that, am I not quite understanding?
What it would allow you to do, if you and I are out on the street working and we're at different ends of the community, and you're going on a call, I would be able to monitor you by enabling that feature, which would allow me to see through your dash car camera. So if you were out on a traffic stop or something like that, I could see what was going on with you, your body movement and what have you. GPS we already have, and the GPS functions is twofold. It's in our radios, it's in our body cameras.
Okay, that's great. It seems like something just a little bit better for everybody. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? One other thing did strike me about the installation, that the vehicles have to be taken out of service for the installation. I assume that would be true with any camera that we use, but if these are going to be upgraded frequently, is there any concern about how long we might need to take cars out of service?
The vendor that we have now comes to the police department, and they turn a car around in about 5 hours.
Okay, that doesn't sound too bad. Good to know.
No, they come out with several people, and they do the whole lights, radio systems, mobile data terminal, in-car cameras, the whole shop.
And you'll be able to continue using them because the contract says we'll deliver the vehicles to an Axon and install it.
Well, yeah, they'll come out here too, but if, and we'll check on this, if the current vendor that we use to do our turnovers, if they're an authorized installer for Axon, which many of them are, these different companies, they get the authorization, we can continue to utilize them.
Okay. Well, I mean, even if we did get new cameras every couple years instead of every 3.5 years, or every 5 years, it might even be less frequent, I suppose, but it depends on how fast they upgrade their camera. Okay, that's all I have, sorry. Anyone want to make a motion?
This is Alderman Berry. Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council waive competitive bidding and authorize a 5-year agreement with Axon for the Fleet 3 in-car camera system.
Second, Alderman Asher.
Davalos. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Motion by Alderman Berry and a second by Alderman Ashour and Davalos. Can we please have the roll call, clerk?
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Weidman.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will move on to item 9, the financial update, fiscal year 2022 through October 2021. Finance Director Dahlstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And your backup is the financial update through October of 2021. Before I go too far into this, the last 9 pages are the actual numbers by fund. I do want to apologize. There are some errors in there that I caught at the last moment, and they're not so much errors as some formatting corrupted the report. So what I'd like to do would be, I'm going to update that report and reissue it in this week's financial or the weekly report. I'll include an update of that. There's some errant figures which came obviously from other linked cells within the Excel spreadsheets I use to produce this, so I will apologize for those. However, the first 19 pages of this include the verbiage and the graphs that you've been used to seeing. The information in there is accurate and correct. The errors in the last sheets had to have occurred right before I produced the output for this. I will say that the majority of our revenues are on the increase. The only 2 that are down at this point would be the use tax and the telecom tax. The amusement tax remains a bit of a challenge. It is still about half of where we were a year ago, even on the 12-month rolling average. It's going to take a considerable amount of time for that to grow back, if it ever does, considering the amusement venues are nowhere near the capacity they were prior to the pandemic. The hotel tax is about the same place it was a year ago. The difference being a year ago is that the receipts were on the decline, and this year they are actually on the increase. And that will continue to be the case as it looks right now. Although, as I mentioned earlier, it could be quite a while until we get back to where we were on pre-pandemic numbers. The other significant increase to point out is in the local motor fuel tax. It is producing almost $13,000 per month higher than it was a year ago. A portion of that has to do with the addition of the Thornton station, which is doing extremely well, even when compared to the other existing stations that are in place. Overall, our funds are doing pretty well. There are some things to note, however, in the general fund that are still outstanding. As I mentioned before, we do still have outstanding collective bargaining agreements which have not yet been settled nor accounted for, which will eat into the positive variance we have right now of approximately $1.5 million through this first half of the year. So that's one of the things that will be considered, and there are some other larger expenditures which have not yet occurred, such as the liability insurance, which we discussed earlier. As we get into the next financial update, there will be some year-end projections, which will begin to show up as I receive those from this staff as we work through our budget process. if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those for you now.
Thank you very much, Finance Director. Let's see what the questions and comments are, starting with Alderman Anderson.
As I look at page, I think it's 77 in the packet, just trying to understand, it looks like it all seems positive year-over-year improvements. I was trying to take it relative to what we expected to come in, i.e. what we budgeted to come in. And so I think if I look on page like 77 and 78, or take 78, that we said with the CMRP, we had expected to be realizing 61.37. We've actually realized 65.75. I think the fact that the realized is greater than the expected says that we're exceeding budget from a revenue perspective. Am I looking at that correctly?
You are correct. I will note those are some of the pages that I mentioned early on do have an issue that I will be formatting and reissuing. But right now, the revenue side of that is correct, and it is exceeding expectations at this point.
So is it fair to say broadly that fund revenues are not just up year over year, but also exceeding our budget is turning out to be conservative and we are exceeding it? Is that fair?
That is fair. We do always tend to budget on the conservative side. You do have to remember, though, that we are comparing this to a pandemic year. We're really not back where we were in 2019, and we'll have a ways to go on that, and I will make sure that I update that as we go forward so that we're comparing the pre-pandemic year with where we are now. It'll be a little fair comparison because it's fairly easy as things turn around to have an increase from where we were a year ago when things were far worse off than they are now.
Yeah, but I still want to commend you. I think as we were filling out this budget, starting at around this time last year, there was a sense of had no idea, what's right to put in, and it just seems like you were thoughtful and predictions are coming out favorably. So no other questions.
Thank you. Alderman Asher.
I just appreciate all the good news in a very understandable fashion.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Yes, I like the way the numbers are, the little graphs are all going up. It's nice to see. And thank you, Kevin, for putting this all together for me. It's much easier for me to understand, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
Yes, I concur with what the other aldermen have said. I appreciate this so much. And it is positive. I know it's not 100%, but I think we're in the right direction, and this is just good information. So thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. First, I know that a lot of our state remittances depend upon our population. I'm wondering when the new census figures will be used for those remittances. Do we know what that date is?
I don't know the specific day. We did receive the clarification from the confirmation from the state that our new population figure has been affirmed. And as soon as we start to receive those from the state in our remittances, I will make sure that gets reported in our weekly report. You have to remember that there is a lag between when the liability month for the state and when we receive that. So as soon as we start to receive that, I will make sure it gets reported.
Okay, understanding how long the lag that is going to be important for us in the near future, especially if we do a special census to capture some of our recent construction and increase in population that we expect. So even though it might be a small difference now, I expect this to be useful pretty soon to understand the ins and outs of when that change is going to show up in our revenue. Looking at the state shared use tax, which is on page 6 of 19 in the financial update. Do you have any idea what's going on with March? Is this just something to do with people filing their income tax right before the April deadline or something?
No, but I am waiting for some data to come back from the state. We do have access to quarterly data, and I'm waiting for that to be remitted to us to determine why that figure is so much of an outlier compared to all the other months. I don't have the specifics of what that is, but I am in pursuit of that.
Okay, because it looks like the prior March there was a spike too. So if it's something that's annual, I mean, I know that the state shared use tax is, I suppose that's sort of what we would consider internet sales tax, sort of, that you have to report it on your income tax to the state. So it just seemed like it might have something to do with the income tax filing date, but maybe not. Also, I was very encouraged to see the charts in the food and beverage tax hit 93% of our monthly average from fiscal year 2019, our last pre-pandemic fiscal year. That's huge. That's a really significant rebound, especially given that we have had some closed restaurants and stores in Warrenville, and it makes me feel really good about the local businesses being able to stay in Warrenville, and that we probably will hopefully be seeing more losses of businesses if things continue the way that they are. And 93% is pretty close to getting back. I know some of the other areas are not anywhere nearly that close to where they were. I'm certainly worried about amusement tax revenue, as you already mentioned, but can we talk a little bit about the hotel tax? I know we've already discussed this today, and I know that we've heard from the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau and the local hotel business that we don't necessarily expect business travel to rebound. But the drop in the hotel tax revenue affects so many of our other funds. It looks like what you're saying is that, let's see, this is page 17 of 19 in the financial update, that our monthly average has creeped back up to 54,000, and that previous to the pandemic, that number was more like 75,000, which, as you say, still leaves a lot of room for additional recovery. Do you feel like the recent couple of drops are just seasonal, or is this a worrying trend?
No, I would be more inclined to believe that they are seasonal reductions. We generally see at this time of year that the hotel tax revenue is a bit of a decline during the final months of the fall here and into the winter. We usually see higher receipts than these months when we get out into the summer months when there's more people doing traveling. And we also have to consider the fact that there is still a lot less business travel than there used to be, and there would still be business travel that occurred during the winter months, and that's going to be a lot less right now than it has been in the past.
Okay. I'm certainly encouraged, as other people have said, by the way the CMRP looks, but I think the hotel tax fund we need to keep a very close eye on going forward. Thank you. Those are my questions. So let's go on to Alderman Wagner.
I think all my questions have been answered. I appreciate the conservative estimates and outlook that Kevin and the finance department develops, and it's nice to see that we're rebounding, and I hope we continue in that direction now that we've all praised and mentioned it out loud. Thank you.
Very true. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you very much. Kevin and your group has done a fantastic job of keeping up to date of where we are. We know it's flexible and it's not final, but thank you so much for everything that you've given to us. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a financial update. It's not an action item. We don't need any motions. I will move on So item number 10, the informational updates on the Administration, Finance, and Police Department fiscal year 2022 work plans and decision packages. If there are any comments or questions, now is the time. I'll just ask everyone to speak up if they have anything. Okay. Seeing none, that concludes the business of the meeting tonight. So I have only one more thing I need from you, and that's a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Alderman Anderson.
Motion by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Anderson. Can we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ashaw,
He's out.
Alderman Ashaw,
Alderman Christie is absent.
and Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Thank you.